Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Battlefield Project Podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Rhoda, and we are the podcast for people who understand that life is a battle and only the strong will thrive. I'm joined by my buddy Doug here, who I'm going to introduce in a moment. But before I do, let me go through the boring stuff that I always do at the beginning here, which is if you watch this episode and you get any value out of it, please share it with your friends and family. Or if you watch this and you think, hey, my mom needs to hear this message, or my cousin, whoever that might be, please share the episode with them. I created this podcast basically with one purpose and one intent, which is to let everybody out there know that nobody goes through life untouched. Every single human being on this earth has battles that they must face. The difference between people who are winning in life and losing, winners will fight their way through those battles and they will come out stronger on the other side. So I'm fortunate enough to be joined by these guests who are being authentic and vulnerable enough to share their stories with you, just to give all these examples in the real world of different battles that people face and why and how they fought and overcame those battles. So without further ado, I got my buddy Doug here. I'm going to introduce. He is a husband and a father of three. He is also CEO of Argenta Field Solutions, an award-winning direct sales organization. Argenta's teams have earned over 35 million in commissions selling products via D2D, B2B, referrals, and social media. More recently, Doug launched Argenta Solar, Argenta Consulting, and the Building Great Sales Teams podcast. He also recently made his own energy drink for Argenta called Argenta Energy. I love it, man. I love the brand consistency throughout all that, dude. So I'm
Yeah,
super honored to have you here, man. I'm grateful for our friendship, and I'm excited to hear what you have to share with our audience.
yeah, I'm excited to be here, man. I've been, ever since we connected, I've been watching your social media. The alignment is real, and your partners with Jeff too, which is Jeff is my guy. Jeff is
Yeah,
a mentor to me for sure. He's been in the consulting game for a while. I've only been in for about a year and a half, and I've just learned so much from him. He's an amazing guy.
yeah, he's an awesome dude. Yep. So yeah, man, the floor is yours. I'm excited to hear what kind of battles that you faced in your life, and then how and kind of why you fought your way through those battles instead of letting them defeat you.
Man, I didn't fight a lot. Well, okay, so I got both sides of the coin here. I got the mommy issues and the daddy issues, right?
Yep.
And so I grew up innocently enough, my mom was divorced, but my earliest memory, she was divorced, and she ended up remarrying a military man, and we actually lived with him for 4 or 5 years before they divorced, right? And so some of the things I went through when I was younger was a lot of uncertainty about where my home was going to be, not the next meal. I always had that taken care of for the
Yep.
most part. We were always middle class, you know. But then right around 10 or 11 years old, things got kind of crazy. They went through the divorce, they went through money problems, stuff like that. My aunt was always kind of like my guardian angel. And so she came in and said, hey, I know there's a lot going on right now. My sister had just gotten pregnant, and she was 15, no, 14 years old at the time, 15 years old at the time. So it was just a lot of not good things happening around me. And I had lived with my aunt before, like a summer here, a school year there. She just kind of plucked me out of there, and I went to live with her, and that's when I started middle school. And just to kind of sum it up, my mom didn't really fight to get me back over there. She was going through her own battles, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And so that kind of impacted me, obviously. And so as I went through high school and stuff like that, I knew I wanted to be somebody because I didn't want to be like my family, right? And so I just didn't know what, right? And so I graduated high school. I was 18 years old. I wanted to live on my own. I wanted to be independent just because I had seen so much uh, non-independence from my family, I guess you could say, whether it be, military or, my wife having to be, or my mom having to be married in order to provide us with a home and income and everything. So I went out on my own. I moved from San Antonio to Corpus Christi with 200 bucks and a Ford Ranger. And I got a job on the way to Corpus Christi washing dishes, you know. And I remember it was the Island Shrimp House, and I'd go home every night smelling like fish and shrimp, which is gross when you do it every night. But
Yeah.
I upgraded position after position. But one of the main things that always kept happening was I either got fired or I quit because I was frustrated with my boss, my management, whatever. Yeah, I didn't do good with authority,
Yep.
which is it's a good thing I'm deaf in one ear because I tried to cheat my way into the Air Force taking the hearing test,
Yep.
but I was deaf in one ear, so I obviously didn't pass it. But it was a good thing, right? Because somebody like me does not belong in the military because I
Yeah,
don't listen
you
well.
wouldn't have
You
lasted
know,
long.
I wouldn't have lasted long, right? I would have been court-martialed or something. But anyways, so I went through position after position, and then I found sales. That was the first time I was like, okay, I can control my income a little bit. I have a little bit of freedom because they just want me to go out and hunt and eat what I killed, that whole deal. And so I did marketing products, right? And then I started learning graphic design a little bit. Started working for a real estate company that managed over 200 listings. I ended up becoming the marketing manager for them. That's where I learned a little bit of marketing. It was old school marketing though, like postcards and flyers, and
Yeah,
the
stuff you
old
could
school real
touch.
estate. Yeah, we were just getting into lead generation via websites and stuff like that. He was ahead of the game there, but
Yeah.
he moved, and so I got laid off, and I ended up working for another entrepreneur that had multiple businesses, and one of those businesses was Argent Association, and it was only about 8 months old, and he asked me to start managing it, like the whole business, right? Granted, it was a door-to-door sales company. There was only like 7 or 8 salespeople, so he had dumped 200 grand into it, so it wasn't a big risk for him to have me take it over and see if I could make it work. I was able to. I got it back to black. I've always been kind of scrappy that way. I can make things happen, like the laptop issue I told you about this morning.
Yep, figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll make it happen, right? So, anyways, I got into the business. I started knocking doors for 90 days, right? And I never knocked doors again after that 90 days. And I was able to do that because I put systems and processes in place. I set up training, I set up scripts. I started being really efficient with my time in terms of recruiting. I did opportunity group interviews instead of one-on-one interviews. And then eventually I attracted a manager, and then we were able to scale from there. So that was back in 2011. I took over that business, and we were able to scale it up by 2014 to 13 offices, 110 salespeople, and 5 million annually in commission. And that was all systems and processes. It was the integrator in me, and my team had something to build on versus, just kind of like, hey, follow me out in the field. I'm going to be the top salesperson. I'm going to make the most commissions, and
Yep.
they just want to be like me. It was more like I gave them tools in the system to build on, so we were able to scale that.
Yeah.
And so at this point, I'm married. I have 3 kids, you know, and so when you look at, my childhood, I'm crushing it, compared to
Yep.
what I grew up with, right? And my family's still doing all the same things that they do, right? So I kind of annexed myself to my family a little bit. I was succeeding in business. I was succeeding in, I had the wife and 3 kids. I had the perfect marriage and the house, the business, the whole deal, right? And so all of a sudden that chip I had on my shoulder, of my mom not coming and getting me and, not feeling worthy or whatever, I didn't have an excuse for it anymore. I didn't have a reason to basically keep working hard because I had accomplished all things, right? But I still felt like, I still had that hole in my heart, and I didn't have a strong relationship with God at the time. I didn't have a strong relationship even with my kids. I wasn't able to be present, you know, because whenever you're not content, it's very hard to be present.
Yep.
And so I started looking to other things to kind of fill that void, and that didn't work out well, because it was strip clubs, it was drinking, it was being unfaithful to my wife, right? And so I lived that way. Basically, I would go on the road. I would go to one of my offices. I would meet with my team. I'd rally the troops and, take the managers out. We'd have a good time or whatever. And then I would be that person when I was on the road. And then when I come home, I'd be the quintessential
Yep.
dad and, family man. We were even going to church. I was helping my uncle-in-law start a church there. So I was just living these 2 lives, one
Yeah.
when I was on the road and one was out, when I was at home. And, I knew it was wrong when I was doing it. And I had tried to quit several times, but when you look at what men face today, and this isn't an excuse, this is the reality. This is how that thread gets pulled, and all of a sudden everything unravels, right? You realize you have a problem, you have an addiction. And so I found porn very early. I found porn when I was in middle school. My aunt had an internet connection, so I found a way, a
Yep.
back door into things like LimeWire and BearShare and all that stuff.
Yep.
And so that implanted what I thought basically this addiction that I thought I needed, you know? And so when I got older and I realized, hey, money can buy that, you know, title and status can buy that, essentially, I took advantage of it and it got out of control. And so obviously it affected my marriage. You know, she never found anything out for 2 years. But she did realize that I was distant, I was pulling away, something was off, right? And so she kind of put her foot down and said, hey, if you don't stop traveling so much, if you don't stop working so much, and if you're not present for these kids, you're going to lose this guy. And that kind of shook me a little bit, right? And then I had conviction from God as well, having, you know, started a church with my uncle-in-law. And at one point he asked me to give testimony. And I was like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I didn't tell him why. I just told him I can't give testimony, you know? And so that convicted me. I stopped cold turkey. I got into rugby, which was huge because that was my outlet now. And it was a productive outlet. And I found a brotherhood. So I found a place where I belonged. Obviously, I should have felt that with my family, but it was hard for me to at the time because I had all these different demons. And so things started getting really good. I lived that way for 2 years. And so this is like 4 years from the first time I was unfaithful now. And my wife came across my phone. It was an old email or something like that, something very small that I could have easily played off. You know, I could have easily said, hey, you know, yeah, I was tempted, but I didn't do anything. And I just unloaded everything.
Yeah.
All 2 years of infidelity, the lifestyle that I lived when I was on the road, I told her everything.
Yeah.
Which was the worst thing I could have done. So if you've ever been through that, you know, if you've ever been unfaithful or had a partner be unfaithful, you know, you gotta unravel that slowly. You know what I'm saying? You've got to like baby step them through it because if you tell them all at once, it's like you're a completely different person.
Avalanche. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously we separated, and you know, went through about 6 months of trying to reconcile, you know, but the world that we live in now, technology and phones and everything, it's just, you know, the apps that are on the phones and it's so easy to just find someone else that's broken and get distracted. Is all I'm gonna say. So anyways, it didn't work out. And so I had to sell the house in Corpus Christi. She wanted to move to San Antonio to be closer to her parents. And so I moved her to San Antonio, set her up an apartment and everything. The thing that I did right, and this is for the divorce dads here, the thing that I did right is I never made money in this issue. And anytime she asked me to pick up the kids, I was there for them.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I was an entrepreneur, and for whatever reason, God blessed my business during that time. You know, and I was probably in it the least. I was probably working 15, 20 hours a week actually in my business, but I was always available for my kids. We had 50-50 custody. I paid the maximum child support. And I didn't, that's one thing I wouldn't do though. I didn't pay it to the state. I paid it to her directly. I didn't want the state telling me to take care of my family. Right. And so I overpaid on that, even though we were 50-50. And I never made those two things an issue. And anytime she wanted me to take kids, I picked them up. Right. And so what it did was it made me a better father. Being divorced 100%, I can't take it back. Because if I do, then who knows what kind of father I would have been today if I hadn't been divorced and I didn't have to be the nurturer. I didn't have to be the one reading the bedtime stories and kissing the boo-boos and, you know, having all the different conversations that their mom would have had. I had to have because I was the only one there because it was 50-50, right? And so kind of a pivotal point for me, and I would say how we were able to reconcile 3 years later, is I was driving from Corpus Christi to San Antonio. We had just, and I had just packed everything up and I was leaving the house for the last time, you know? And so I'm thinking to myself, how did I do this? How did I just completely destroy my own life here? You know, I had it all. I had the business, I had the wife, kids, you know, beautiful family. And I came to the conclusion that the reason that all this happened is because I was constantly out of integrity. I didn't have integrity. And so and I was also thinking about it. I was like, now I'm that guy. I'm the guy that broke the business, cheated on his wife, got divorced, and now I'm a single dad. You know, now I'm a cliche. I don't want to be a cliche. I don't want to admit to people what I did. And then I had some conviction from God in that moment. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do this. From now on, I'm going to tell people the truth no matter what, no matter how ugly it is, no matter how nasty it is, or even if they want to know or not. This is me. This is what I did. This is who I am. Right. So it was just a decision to tell people the truth about, me being unfaithful in that moment, but it became something that I kind of wore as a badge of honor moving
Yep.
forward. I wanted to be a man of integrity. Right. And so, over the next 3 years, we tried to reconcile maybe 5 or 6 times, and it didn't work out. It wasn't until, and then we had our, separate relationships and everything that we went through in between. But it wasn't until she kind of found her faith again. She lost it after, we broke up and we divorced. It wasn't until she started coming back to her faith, started going to church, started praying again. And it was just one night that she felt that conviction from God and to forgive me. So she worked on it the next couple of weeks to forgive me. I was actually with somebody else, living with somebody else at the time. We had dated for over a year, and I had introduced her to the kids and everything. It was just crazy. And all of a sudden, she just does a 180, stops dating completely, focuses on her relationship with God, and focuses basically on winning me back, which makes no sense in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the one that was
not usually how it
right?
adds up, but yeah.
Yeah. But after 3 years, my heart had become hardened because every time I tried to reconcile with her, she hadn't forgiven me yet. So it was just a wall.
Yep.
And so I had given up essentially, and so over the next couple of months, it didn't work out with the person that I was with. And then I held off for a few more months. And then she was like, hey, I got to go to this wedding. I don't want to take anybody else. Would you go with me to this wedding? And Matthew, if you would have seen her in this dress that she wore to this wedding, it was just like, I was done.
Yeah. Game over. Done. Yeah.
Yeah. Game over. We started dating again. And, we probably kept it from kids for like 3 or 4 months just to make sure.
Yeah.
And then eventually we moved back. We moved back in together onto a piece of property in Divine, 3 acres. Brand new home, brand new land, brand new everything, which was nice. And then about 6 months later, we got reengaged in Cabo at Stuman's mastermind event there.
Nice.
And it was just, it was amazing, And we're actually going to start probably next week putting together a little mini series on kind of our road to restoration, essentially.
Yeah.
And we want to tell that story. I've had a lot of guys reach out to me. Once they hear the story, they reach out to me and it's like, hey, how did you handle this? And they're like, they've just gotten divorced, So they're dealing with the dating thing. They're dealing with the, who gets the kids more and the schedules and, we went through all of that, So I do my best to tell them, hey, this is what we did that worked. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a relationship coach, none of that stuff. I just give them my experience and what worked for me. And I've been really enjoying that part of it. So we decided to do the podcast as well about it and kind of tell our story to others. Not just, hey, you can overcome this thing, you know what I mean? But also, like, we were able to overcome it with God in our life. And that was a big factor.
Yeah.
So that was incredible. And here's the crazy part. Through all of this, I was able to become a better business owner because I had to, right? Yeah. Like, I only had my kids 50% of the time. So, like, when I had them, I didn't want to have to be running my business. Yep. So it forced me from 2018 through COVID all the way to like 22, when we remarried, it forced me to become very efficient with my time, And so I was able to, at that time, run my business again in 15 hours, 20 hours a week. I felt like a lot of that was a blessing, but, and then I found masterminds, I found Apex, I found the growth piece, and I was able to become even more efficient after that.
Yeah.
And then I got into consulting where I'm at now.
Fucking awesome story, man.
Lots to unpack.
Yeah, but it's a awesome, but I don't even think that's the proper word for it. More like, in a lot of ways, it's a beautiful story because I was just part of a call last night at Ben's group I'm in, and the guy who I kind of had the spotlight on him was sharing a story about him and his, I guess, fiance at the time, or almost fiance, got into a fight and they had a perfect relationship, and she said something that hurt him and brought up old wounds, and he attacked her, like, not physically, but like verbally, and said some really hurtful things. And like, for the last, he's counting the days. He's like, for the last 32 days, like, I'm trying to win her back. And she's kind of like, no, it's not happening. He's like, but I'm not giving up. And some of the guys were chiming in. They're like, dude, like, you don't control what happens next. Like, you
Right.
did the deed. Like, you got to now kind of like do your part. But here, and I think in his head, he's like, it's been 32 days. Maybe day 35 is when it's going to happen. Like, maybe it will, but like, it could be 3 years from now. Like, but what's so cool about your story, and you said it at the end there, it's because you both like got into a deeper relationship with God, is you did that inner work. Like, I feel like that's the piece of the puzzle so many people miss. It's like something happened, didn't go the way we wanted, and then you just let resentment, jealousy, hate is an extreme word, but in some cases,
Yeah.
hate
Real.
just become the story and the dialogue that you play over and over in your head. And you never, and not to say that you both find God and poof, of course you're going to get back together. Like, there's probably instances where divorce happens and they both find God and they never get back together. Like, that's a
Yeah. And they
possibility
realize
too.
it's better this way. Yeah.
Yeah, but like yours,
Yeah.
I think regardless of where like you do the inner work and then if you come back or if you go separate still, I think regardless of that outcome, the point is that inner work is what is like the difference maker in all of our lives, in every circumstance in our lives. Like, you can't grow and evolve without doing that work. And that work can be through God, universe. It can be just through self-reflection. Like, I don't think it has to be related to God. I think if you
Mm-hmm.
can get that faith, like, it's a big time help. But it's that willingness to like, okay, this was on me, and like, what can I do to be better personally, and go and do that work, and then whatever outcome comes of that, you're good with. And for you, I think the reason I use the word beautiful is because you did that work, maybe hoping, but it sounded like you gave up at some point, so not
Yeah.
expecting that you were ever going to get back together.
Yeah.
And then poof, God, universe was like, okay, you both still love each other, you both did the work, and I can see this working out again, and it brought you guys back together. That's a really cool, powerful story to share. And I think your on a podcast and kind of the mini series that you mentioned is going to help a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people, because it'll give people the hope that it can come back, you can reunite, you can get back together. But I think you'll probably share it in a way, and I'm not putting words in your mouth at all here, but like, that you can't expect that to happen. Like, it's not a
Right.
guarantee, do A plus B and you get the C. It's like, do A plus B, and then C might be a million different things, but like, you got to do A and B, because without that, you'll never get to C, no matter what C looks like.
Well, and I mean, what you said is so important because I didn't speak to it enough in the story that I told, but you're 100% right. Instead of, just constantly enjoying myself, I was when I didn't have my kids, where was I? I was at the gym, I was
Yeah,
at the office. And yeah, I was dating and stuff like that too, but you can be consumed by that life. You can
correct.
be consumed by those apps, you can be consumed by women, you can be consumed by porn and not hit the gym, not go to the work
Yep.
or not go do the work, not go to church, not do all these things that you know you need to be doing, you
Yep.
know? And that was a big part of it. She saw like again, I decided that I was gonna move forward with integrity. I always told her the truth.
Yep.
And she saw that changing,
Yeah.
you know. And that was what kind of inspired her to like, all right, well, and you do as a divorced couple, you become competitive. It
Yep.
happens, right?
Yep. I believe
So
it.
she saw me going back to church. She saw me doing it on my own. My girlfriend at the time didn't want to go, you know. And so that created kind of that separation that happens when you start developing yourself.
Yep.
That's why me and my ex-girlfriend didn't work out
Yeah.
because she wasn't doing any of that and I was
Yeah.
doing all of that. And then my ex-wife started to see that change and it kind of motivated her to like, hey, well, if the kids are going to church with him, they got to go to church with me too, you know?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, dude.
And so,
It's funny you say that.
so
Like, go for it.
in a way, I was able to leave my family without the family being together with them,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Totally. And that I'm glad you even said that you didn't get into that part of the story. And
Hmm.
it's funny how like, we're Facebook friends. I've never met you in person. Like, we don't even like,
Hmm.
this is our first time, I think, like having a conversation with each other besides like an instant message or email back and forth once or
Right.
twice. But
Yeah.
I could see you like, and I know like you didn't have to tell that part of the story for me to know
Hmm.
that was part of your story, because and you're kind of now out of the darker tunnel back into the bright side and like living
Right.
a life of integrity more. But like, that's the version of you that I've gotten to know through Facebook and just kind of like our virtual
Hmm.
friendship. So intuitively I'm like, okay, I'm not watching this dude do what he does today and like live the life he's living today if he didn't do that work. Like you don't just like
Yeah.
wake up, go through a divorce, wake up, and then like, a year later, 3 years later, be like, poof, oh, we're back together and life's perfect again. Like it does, life
Yeah.
doesn't work like that. So I kind
Yeah.
of had assumed, like rightfully so, it seems that like you
Mhm.
definitely did the inner work because and that's again like a message in this podcast, this episode is like, you don't like there's no magic wand. Like you don't get to have
Yeah.
like a tragedy, wave your magic wand a year later and get what you want. Like life doesn't, like whether it's through divorce, whether it's through a death of a family member, whether it's through loss of business and going bankrupt, whatever that is, whatever that tragedy is,
Yeah.
or that big, disaster is in your life, you'll never get out of that and stronger on the other side if you don't do the work through that process. And that's what a lot
Well,
of
and
people
that,
miss, I feel like.
yeah, and can you imagine how much work she had to do to like,
Yeah.
and you know what you said earlier about like bringing up old stuff? Since the day that she forgave me, she's never brought up my infidelity yet.
Yeah.
She's never brought up that person that I was.
Yep.
You know, my peers and friends and people that used to work with me or old partners, they'll bring it up all the time
Yep.
because here I am preaching integrity, and they're like, "Oh, we're an
Yeah.
integrity." So I don't know how to say that. A person of integrity.
Yep.
uh, they'll bring it up all the time, even some family and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's the thing that they want me to be. They want
Yeah.
me to stay there, because then they can say, "Oh, well, Doug did those things on everybody."
Yep.
And I get that. I mean, that's part of life. That's how humans operate most of the time until you start doing that work. So
Yeah.
again, imagine the work she had to do. Not only forgive me, but genuinely, Matt, when I tell you that I like
You don't
she
feel
loves me
any.
way more than she did before. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And it does not make any sense. It is not a worldly possibility
Yeah.
for someone to go through everything she's gone through and be able to see her husband every day and be lit up with love.
Yeah.
That just doesn't happen when your husband has put you through what I put her through.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We couldn't do that on our own.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, dude, and you said lit up with love, and I'm like, I got. If you know Lisa Marie in APEC, like she uses
Yeah.
not goosebumps. What is it? I can't
Angel
remember.
bumps.
Angel bumps. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like she uses
Yeah,
that
I
on
know
a call or
Lisa.
stuff, and I'm like, I like hearing you say that, it gave me angel bumps because I'm like that's exactly what I was gonna say, dude. Your wife is like a perfect example of forgiveness and love. Like, and it takes those two because yeah, she could forgive you, but if she doesn't like truly, truly, truly love you again, she'll throw like that little dagger occasionally, and
Yeah.
like she'll bring that up. And if it's things aren't going in her way and she wants to knock you down a little bit, like that, it's so easy to default back to that hurt. But that
Yeah.
hurt doesn't exist when true love wins. And like that, the amount of love that she has for you, like the fact that you can sit here, I can feel you like saying that, and I feel like the depth of it, of like she loves you more now than ever. I'm like, holy shit, man! Like what a powerful woman that you have in your life. Because I would be willing to bet 99% of men don't have that. Like some of them may get their wife back, but not get that depth of love and get that like still resentment, still holding on to it, still living in it a little bit when it serves their purpose. But yeah, dude, you're like your relationship's kind of like a walking miracle in some ways.
Yeah, and that's why we feel like we need to share that because we don't take credit for it.
Yeah.
I would love to, but every time I do, every time I go down that road, I realize I'm still human.
Yeah.
There's no way that I could take credit for that. And it was difficult when we got back together because I still didn't trust her completely. I was like, "You're saying you forgive me, all your actions show you forgive me,
Yep.
But I
Just
had
waiting
never
for that
been.
moment.
Well, you think about it. How many people are truly loved like that in their life,
Yeah.
other than maybe their mother? You know what I'm saying? I didn't have that.
Yep.
So like, how many people are truly loved like that?
It's rare.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
rare. So it's hard to believe, but yeah, sitting here now, we're about to celebrate our 1 year remarriage,
Yeah.
and I can tell you that 100% without a doubt, she doesn't. You know how you see the person that's wrong you, and all you can see is the wrong. You know
Yep.
what I mean, or the sin,
Totally.
or the thing that they did to you. I got 100% without a doubt she sees me again.
Yeah. Or like sees not even the wrong, but like the potential of that happening again. Like I would imagine, like you said, like through the human form and like human consciousness and the human experience, like someone hurts you
Mhm.
once, you're kind of like, okay, like I love them, I forgive
Yeah,
them, but like there's a chance they hurt me again. Like, and you're kind of
Yeah.
like walking on eggshells a little bit, even if it's just ever so gently, because it's like, I just don't want that to
And
happen
then
again. There's a
terrible.
chance. And like, so yeah, for you both, and specifically her, because you kind of did the infliction there, like to supersede
Right.
that human element of it and be able to transcend that and give you what she's giving you now, man. Like,
Yeah.
which I know you do, but like, yeah, count your blessings, man, because
Yeah.
that's a rare, rare thing to see happen on this earth.
Well, and part of it was when we got back together, before we married, I joined Apex, right? And I was able to, because you always assume somebody with a Stewman level of success, you know what I mean, is being on paper. Just assume it. You do.
Yep.
That level, like a country music star or a rapper or
Yep.
whatever. You're just always going to assume that they're not going to have a traditional marriage, right?
Yep.
And turns out that that's what he preaches on. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Is being faithful. Integrity is a big deal to him, right? And so when you saw the men around him, the ones that were really close to him, you know, going to bed at 9:30 at night, and I knew this because I was in the hotel rooms with him at the event. When we were flying, I mean, think about this. Like we're literally taking a private jet to New Jersey. You know what I mean? We're meeting with a client there. That client had, friends that were DJs, rappers.
Oh
Like
yeah.
we were around like New Jersey royalty.
Yep.
And then can you imagine the kind of women that would be around that? But no,
Yep.
everybody was about their business.
Yeah.
And I did. I got to see that. I got to see them going back to the hotel room at 9 o'clock at night and getting up at 4:30 and working out the next morning. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And doing their journaling or whatever the case was. I would run into them at breakfast and got their journal right there and they're
Yeah.
reading their Bible or they're reading a book.
Yeah.
So I had this constant example put in front of me, which enabled me to create that separation between the life that I had when I was divorced and the life that
Yeah.
I was going to have being married again. And it put the practical stuff in there because
Yeah.
again, if you just have God and you don't have the practical stuff
You're
to
not
get through
doing the
life,
work. Yeah.
you're putting a lot of pressure on God, which he could
Yeah.
do it. Don't get me wrong, but he's not going to. He's going to want to see you put in the work.
Correct.
Which is going to bed at 9:30 at night, getting up at 4:30.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about it. Is the body is the body, right? Everything bad happens after 10 o'clock. If you're going to bed at 9, you're gonna be in good shape. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying all
Yep.
your temptations are gonna get cut by like 70,
Yep.
80%.
Yeah.
So,
Dude, we'll end here in a couple minutes because I don't want to take too much of your time. But how did what was your kid's initial reaction when, like you said, you got back together
oh
with their
man, we haven't
mom and
even talked
like,
about kids. Yeah,
yeah, and like you waited a couple months to know it was like definitely happening
yeah,
before you obviously don't want to tell them, and then like something happens, you're like, sorry again, like that'd be devastating.
yeah.
So you told them, like, was it pure joy? Was it confusion? Like, how did they receive that information?
Well, my daughter's my oldest, and she's easily my smartest for her age. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? She's straight A student, won the president's award. Here's the crazy part: it's all her, right?
Yeah.
She loves school. But anyways, right away she was like, "I told you." She looks over the boys. She said, "I told you. I knew it. I knew it, Dad. I knew it was gonna happen."
That's awesome.
When y'all divorced, I said they're gonna get back together.
Yeah.
But can you imagine if we didn't? Like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. But anyways, no, they were thrilled. They were
Yeah.
absolutely beside themselves. Um, and it was one of those things. It's like they had a lot of uncertainty in their lives for the last couple of years. I mean, they never were uncertain about roof over their heads if their mom and dad loved them or if they were going to have to, and that we supported them or whatever they did. They were never
Yep.
uncertain about that. They were always uncertain about, okay, mom's dating this other guy. We've met him and he's nice and everything. Is he going to be in our lives?
Yeah.
Or dad's dating this other woman and she's nice and we met him and everything. Is she going to be in our lives? Like, and are we allowed to love him? Are we allowed to love her? Like,
Yeah.
went through some hard shit,
Yeah.
and so you could just kind of see that weight come off of him. It's like, hey, I get to have my mom and my dad again,
Yeah.
100% of the time,
Yeah.
And so when everything happened, we sat them down, and there's no way they could like really understand what happened between me and their mom at the time.
Yeah.
I think my youngest son was 5 or 6, my middle son was 8, and my daughter was 9 in the first
Mm-hmm.
half. And now they're 9, 11, and 12.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we're getting to that point. So we want to tell them all at once.
Yeah.
All right. I want to tell them all at once because it's mine to tell, right?
Yeah.
I think when my oldest son is around 10, I think he's going to understand the
Yeah.
concept of, infidelity
Faithfulness. Yeah.
and the yeah, exactly. So I think I'm going to be able to sit them down and kind of tell them all at once, and you know, because they know dad made they know it was dad's
Yeah.
fault,
Yeah.
you know. But I'm sure my daughter at this point is assuming as much.
Yeah.
But the other two have no idea. So I do want to tell them when they're ready for that,
Yeah.
and so that they can learn from that, and they kind of cement that in their minds, like, hey,
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy going through the last 3 years of this,
Yeah.
so I don't want to put my kids through it. So
Yeah.
why don't I make sure that I am of sound mind and sound heart before I get married? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? That I have a strong relationship with God, that I have a battle plan, if
Yeah.
you will,
Yeah.
for life or for life as a faithful husband or wife. You
Yeah.
know, so
Dude, I
that's my
don't.
job.
Yeah,
That's
man.
my job is to
I have
take that and to make sure they do. You
learn
know,
from it, lead by example. I
yeah.
don't know your wife, man, but like if she was like next to you, I'd be like, give her a hug for me because like as a testament to both of you, I kind of expected that was going to be your response about your kids. But again, you know, that's situation A. Situation B, which happens probably all the time too, is like mom, dad separate, they get back together, and kid still hates mom or dad, not hates, but like still
Yeah.
doesn't love
Yep.
mom or dad because he left for 3 years. Like a
Yeah.
million of different
She
emotions that could
blamed
have
it
gone.
all on him.
Yeah,
He
like
blamed it
it's
on
so many
her.
opportunities for that
Yeah.
not to go well, man. And like I I admire you, I admire your wife, and like through you sharing that story of how your kids reacted to it, it just like reaffirms why I'm admiring you because I'm like it those kids reacting like that is a direct reflection of the kind of people you and your wife are and the love that you share for each other despite the heartache that you experienced for a couple of years. And you know, as a dad of four and happily married, like I think there's no greater gift or responsibility that we have on this earth as human beings than to, if we have the responsibility and the gift of raising children, is to be that example and raise those little souls to go out in the world and prosper and like
Mhm.
be the change that we want to see. Like that to me, that's like it. At the end of the day, I'm like, I take the breath out of my lungs tomorrow. And like, as long as my kids knew they were loved and like are going to
Yeah.
navigate this world with a good heart, generosity, kindness, and like all these qualities that me and
Mhm.
my wife were instilling in them, we win.
Yeah.
Like the universe wins, God wins, we win. And just hearing you tell your story and then hearing how your kids reacted to it, I'm like, okay, there's more soldiers, good soldiers out there in the world that are coming up the next generation that are going to make this world a better place. So as much crap as we see in the news and stuff like that, I'm like, oh, good. Like there's good kids being raised by great parents that are going to go out there and change the world for the better, man. So kudos to you and your wife, man, for doing the work and setting that example.
Oh, I appreciate that, and I think it is. It's all about controlling what you can.
Yeah.
You know. You know, going back to inner work. For any guys that out there that are divorced or going through a separation, you know what I mean, or are trying to reconcile with their significant other, you're 100% right. You can't name the day, can't expect them to meet you halfway.
Yeah.
But what you can do is work on yourself, whatever
Yeah.
that means to you, you know. And if you do that, law of attraction, right? We know that the mythical part isn't real, but we also know that when you decide to make yourself a better human being, whether that's, not subscribing to the things of this world, which are ridiculously tempting at all times, right?
Yeah.
You decide to put down that app, you decide to stop drinking 3 or 4 times a week, you decide to get your ass in the gym and put in the work, you decide to invest in a career or a business that makes you happy,
Yeah.
and you do that work, that person, you know what I mean, that you're longing for, that you want to reconcile with, or that person that you don't even have yet,
Yeah.
is going to show up in your life,
Yeah.
And I believe that 100%. It may not be the one you thought it was.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You
It
don't,
may be a
you can't
different
control
one.
that part. Yep.
You can't control that part, right? But if you start working on yourself, start doing that inner work that we talked about earlier, if you control what you can,
Yeah.
you're going to be in good shape. Same thing with the kids.
Yep.
Like they go out there in the world, they're experiencing all kinds of bullshit. I
Yeah.
know because they bring it home to me every day and they ask me about it.
Yeah.
And most of the conversations end with, "Hey, but what can you control?"
Yep.
So, and whose emotions can you control? Whose opinion can you control? My own.
Yeah.
That's it. And as
Yeah.
long as you're going out there and you're showing them God's love and you're showing them problem solving and you're showing them being a good human being, being a good friend,
Yeah.
that's all you can control.
Yeah.
If they don't return that, then you don't have to accept it.
Yeah.
You don't have to be around it. You can choose your environment, choose your friends.
Yeah.
You can control that part. Let's not, subscribe to this victimhood mentality, and let's be in control of,
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the message that, obviously, if anybody's dealing with what I dealt with, I would want to give, and then I try to give it.
Yeah. Fuck, man. Powerful conversation, powerful story, man. I love it. I love you for sharing it. And I think a lot of people out there are struggling with something similar, about to be, or in the middle of it, or coming out on the other side of it, can get a lot of clarity and just wisdom from everything that you shared. So I appreciate it, man.
I think we all know it.
Yeah. Agreed with you 100%.
I think
Yep.
we all know it. Sometimes we just need that tough love,
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't think it's going to come from a podcast. The notion may, right?
Yeah.
Hey, maybe I should start working on myself. If you're lucky, you'll have someone in your life that just like strikes you in your heart and convicts you to do that,
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to have a group of men, very similar to the Battlefield Alliance, that convicted me every day on a daily basis. Imagine that, if you can get that conviction every day.
Yeah.
And so I think what you're doing with the Battlefield Alliance and being that example for the men, I think is massive.
Appreciate it, man.
And not to overplug here, but if you guys haven't looked into that, I would 100% look into that and join a group of men that have similar values. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, similar values, and that y'all will hold each other accountable.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I would be married today if I didn't have that group of men.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, that whole lone wolf mentality, like, it
doesn't work.
It's good maybe for a few things in life, but like ultimately, yeah, you need that brotherhood.
It got me to around 26, and then I fell apart, and I just succumbed to all the things.
Yeah. Yep. Awesome, Doug, man. Thank you. Where can people find you online, just if they want to connect with you personally and or hire you to help them grow their business and all that good stuff?
txbizdad.com. That's gonna be my phone site, and have all my social media and all that on there. If you're on Facebook, it's txbizdad. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all my handles are txbizdad.
Okay, beautiful. I'll share that in the show notes, man, so that people can connect with you and
absolutely
just get that good energy that you're putting out there, man, because the world needs it.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Doug, for being here. For everybody listening, like I said at the beginning, please share the show if this resonates with you and or you think someone else in your life needs to hear this. I'd really appreciate it getting shared, and let's make that massive positive ripple effect across the universe, because I think that's what we're all on this earth to do. So, Doug, thanks for being here, brother, and everybody out there. See you on the battlefield.